now it's your turn.
All right. So, unlike David, I'm starting with slides that I've had and I've used for different professional developments. So it's not really the content here that we're focused on any of these slides, because as David showed, it could be about the Roman Republic. It could be about mitosis. It could be about whatever it is that you happen to teach. But the principles that Kevin talked about here are going to be the same, no matter what that content is. And so I just stole a couple of slides from presentation that I've done many times now about AI in education. And one of the things that I kind of like about this slide here is that it definitely shows some of that, and I think you could see some consistency that will follow in some of that unified design, where your titles are going to be in one color, your text might be in another color, but they both pop, right? I like on this particular slide here that there's also a bunch of white space that you could see up in that top right hand corner of it, but your attention gets drawn to a couple of different things on this page. And I think, like David had talked about, it goes from one thing to the next to the other. Whether you go right to the center of the slide and you're seeing what the title of the presentation is, or you're jumping up and you're seeing like, okay, this is coming from ECMECC, who's my company that I work for, right? Or it's to that highlighted part that if I'm viewing these slides and I want to be able to follow along, I can go right to that link and I can be a participant in it that way as well. But this is a good thing. I think most of what I'm going to show next are my mistakes and how I'm trying to work through and fixing what some of these mistakes are. Okay, so I think mostly what I'm going to focus on are many of the mistakes that I've made in creating slides in the presentations that I have. So I'm going to go to this next one here. And I like to start out this presentation a little bit about what AI is and what AI is not. And you could see here that I've got a lot going on this slide. I've got our branded logo up here that's covering, a good portion of that top left part of the slide. I've got the title here, but it kind of seems to get lost with the rest of the content that's going on that page. I've got some visuals here, but are they really, helping to enhance that particular slide? Or are they kind of getting lost with each other? And then I think there's too many bullet points on this slide as well. So I've got many of these mistakes going on all at the same time. So a couple of things here that I'm going to try to do to alleviate some of those problems. One of them is, I think that consistent formatting is really, really important. And David showed us some of his ideas for that. But if you want to fix some of those problems like right away and get your formatting consistent. Oh, now I know. If I go up to the view menu, I can choose this one here that says theme builder. And what it's going to show is the slide master that I have attached to these different slides. And you can fix some of that stuff right here on the master slide itself. Like if you want all of your titles to be located in the same place on every slide and you want them to be the same color, the same font, all of that sort of stuff, you can change that right here on this particular slide. So if I want this to be Roboto size 28, but I want it to be bold, I can click on that bold right there and it's going to apply bold to the other titles on the slides. And if you're going to use bullet points, again, you can do the same thing here for each of these different levels. And if I want to fix them all at the same time, like say I want them to all be size 18 font, it will do that. If I want to use a different font for my bullet points than I have for my titles, I can easily do that and change that to a different type of a font. But as Kevin showed out, again, make sure they're consistent and make sure that you're not using too many different ones all at the same time. right? And then if I go through and I can rename this to have this template anytime that I want to use it, and you can see that it's going to apply those fixes to all of my different slides once I've done all of those things. So kind of a good way to do it is to make sure that it's consistent in the slide master before you move on with your other things. So I'm going to go back here to this one that I was working on here with all of these different problems, and I'm going to try to fix some different parts of it. One of the things that I thought was happening here is this is just taking away having that company logo on every single slide. I mean, people know from the first slide what your company logo is. So I'm taking that out, and I'm going to go to choose a different sort of template that's not going to include that logo there, but yet it still offers some sort of consistent branding and some consistent color scheme that our company uses. And so that's one way that I've done that. Now, the next thing that I want to fix here is perhaps my title. Having it way over here on the right-hand side, it really gets lost. So I can move that around here a little bit. I can find different ways to align that, maybe in the middle and maybe to center, right? So that it's more into the middle part of the page. And so now it feels a little bit better there to me that I've done that. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to take away here from this is I want to reduce the amount of text and pictures that I have on this same slide. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy this slide. So I still have these ideas of what I want to come back to and fix in my head. But on the one that I'm going to fix it for, I'm actually going to get rid of this whole text box. And I'm going to get rid of these different ones that don't apply here. And so now I'm going to have this one image along with a little bit of a citation here that goes along with it. And so now when I get to this slide right here, and I wanted to say that AI is not alive, right? I can add that to my speaker notes if I know what I want to say, but people are going to see this as like, oh yeah, why is he talking to this AI robot that is sitting there that doesn't even have legs and that sort of stuff? And I can talk to my audience then about how this is really not representative of what AI is. And I could talk about how maybe AI is not smarter than all of us, even though in this particular episode of the show, the AI is really trying to portray themselves that way. If I still want to use, some content from this other slide now, maybe I want to take, another one here. And really, all I need to really do here is copy this slide. And I'm just using my shortcuts on my keyboard to do that. So that's why you're not seeing the menu come up. And I'm going to take this image away. And now I'm going to put in the Terminator and put that onto my new slide. Right. And arrange this in such a way that it's going to make more sense. I like to leave the citations on there. I don't know. I'm just trying to give credit where credit is due, right? And put this on here. And again, now I can talk about how AI is not killer robots. And I could do similar things here for the other content that is on there. And so what I think is I've got slides now that are impactful, that are still carrying the meaning that I wanted to get across by looking at my bullet points. But now my audience is going to be able to focus on this. And you know what else they're going to be able to do is add in some of their own prior knowledge and background as it relates to AI in this particular case to help them better connect that content. So I think that's a good way to think of it here too. So I think one of the things that's important about this here that you can see in these changes is that I haven't lost the ideas of what I'm trying to convey to my audience, but yet it's being done so in a much more practical way. One other example of a slide then here I have would be this one here as well, which I thought was really good. And I used AI, I thought, to make a really great visual. And I had this one created and had used it in presentations before listening to Kevin. And now as I go back and I look at this particular slide, AI did a great job. I took all of these different terms in my bullet point and I said, I want you, Dolly, to make an image for me that's going to convey all of these different things into what AI is. And it put them all into this kind of collaged, pieced together image. And I thought, man, this is great. It put together all of these different things. But now as I look at this one image, I get distracted. I don't know which ones to focus on. I don't know which ones relate to those different bullet points that are on there. What I would have been much better doing if I wanted an image about AI robotic tractors and precision agriculture is just to make one of these at a time and then make that image regenerate. And maybe it would have focused in on this one of, it looks like maybe a John Deere tractor there, or maybe, using the drone images of someone, working in the fields and precision agriculture. But it would have been much more effective, I think, in my presentation had I done that. So I'm not going to go through and regenerate a new one, but I know when I go back to fix this slide for my next upcoming presentation, that's how I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make sure that it does kind of like go along with what I'm trying to say, but isn't going to be taking away from the content at the same time. Use it to enhance. So those are kind of the things that I guess I really tried to focus on for how I'm going to go through and continue, because I know it's going to be an ongoing project for me to continue to update the slides to make them higher quality.
Yeah, I think it was great. There's a couple of things with, pointing out the templates thing for one to, apply things across slides, I think is really important. I would imagine that a lot of people aren't aware that you can build that out.
And it's so much easier to do it before you even start your presentation than to go back and fix them individually on every slide, right?
Yeah, yep. Huge time saver. But then like going to the stuff that you were working on, I'm much more of a visual person. And so like with, video, images, things like that. I think that one of the things that I really like about the changes is just having, you're going to be going through all the different things that AI is not. So then just having the image and then you as the presenter explaining it, I think is much more of it. Like if I was sitting in your presentation, or even just here listening to you about it, right? It's much more easy to focus on what you're saying and make the association to the image as opposed to having the task of reading a bunch of the text. And not only that, but like if you go back a slide, right? Let's say that you started talking about the first item. Well, my attention would still be like, I would probably still be going through each of those individual ones in my head and thinking about them while you're trying to just talk about the one, and so I think splitting them up and putting them into those separate slides and then having like, if you look at your Terminator one, I like that one the most probably because it's like just dead center and it's, I can clearly see it's a good representation of one of the items you're going to be talking about. And then you've got like the white space on the sides and it's not overwhelming. There's not a bunch of other stuff going on. I just to get to like, look at that, take it in, and then listen to you talk about it, which I think is really good. And I 100% agree with the AI image thing. Like right away when you pulled it up and I was looking at it, my eyes were just kind of like bouncing everywhere, which is completely contrasted to when you have just the one image and I can just focus on that image. I instantly felt like overwhelmed in my, like, as I was looking at this, I mean, because it looks cool, but then when I realized there was like, what is that, 18 pictures, I'm just like,
yeah. And if I pulled just even one part of it out, right, and just talked on that one little part, it'd be so much more impactful, I think, than getting lost in all of the different ones, right?
100%. If you split it up like you did with the first section there and you had each of those bullet points as their own slide and you had like an agriculture focus and it was just the drone one like you mentioned, that would be great. Like, I think that
Yeah.
would be extremely effective. Um, and
And
honestly,
I guess it's a lesson for me too, just because AI can do something cool, like mash all that stuff together, that maybe that's not what we should be doing with it just because you can.
right, yeah, and I would say, like, everything that I've learned from the interview with Kevin and then thinking about what you have done here and stuff, and some of the things that I did, it's like there's definitely something to be said for less is more. Like,
Yes.
you can get so much more out of less going on in the presentation and enhancing it in other ways as you're talking about it, or like you said before, handing out a handout that would
Yeah.
be associated to something so someone could dive deeper later on or whatever. But yeah, I think it's great.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm excited to go back and make some of these adjustments and changes, knowing what I know now, right? Um, which we always have to be able to do in education is we always find out something new, then it's going to affect everything that we do after that. We have to go back and we have to change the way that we've done things. So that's
Yeah,
where I'm at. That's for sure.